All right, so it's like we have a lot of commentators saying, what on earth just happened over those 24 hours? Saw the United States enter the war actively, attacking Iranian facilities, declaring total victory. Then Iran, thankfully very cautiously, struck back in a very calculated, reserved way, announcing ahead of time this very limited strike. Basically, they had to do kind of sticking with the rules of war, as they say. It's funny, in medieval times and ancient times, there were rules. For example, if a castle or a city was put under siege, the commander had certain rights. He couldn't demand an immediate surrender. The defenders would have the right to wait and see if help would arrive. If help didn't arrive after a set amount of time, they would have to surrender. Otherwise, they would be considered like illegal combatants and could be executed if captured. If help arrived within a certain amount of time, if a friendly army came over the horizon, then their ability to legally continue to resist was extended. There's always been kind of rules and laws regarding warfare, but they do change, and I think something that has been so chilling and shocking lately is this the way that Israel and the United States has been acting without any regard to what is considered the norms of warfare, or how war can be conducted in a legal and internationally respectable sort of way. Thankfully, Iran, though, has played by some very cautious rules, and I think they come out of this with good standing in the world, in the eyes of a lot of countries, even countries that are aligned with the United States. They look at Iran's conduct versus Israel's conduct, and it's clear which country is the more stable, rational country with a future, which country can be dealt with in a respectful, trustworthy manner. The United States has blown their political capital, and they've blown through it fast. Using negotiations as cover to prepare for strikes. The way that the IAEA has been a tool of U.S. Aggression towards Iran, they've really played a lot of their cards that they won't be able to play again, or at least not as easily. It's surprising, though, just how long their power lasts, how long their ability to topple countries and destabilize countries, how long it lasts. And I don't think Iran is out of the woods yet. They've bought themselves some time. Again, what on earth happened? Were Iran's strikes against Israel effective to such a degree that Israel had to ask for a ceasefire? That's what a lot of people are saying. It went from, at the start of the attack, Israel and the United States saying unconditional surrender, and they're talking about regime change, talking about openly. They have the crown prince of the old Persian monarchy stating his desire to be installed again, and it looked like they were going for regime change. They were looking to destabilize and overthrow the government of Iran. I guess it didn't work fast enough. It didn't work the way they were hoping. And Israel and the U.S. weren't prepared for a long, drawn-out conflict, and so they asked for a ceasefire, or just said, "Hey, let's stop fighting." And thankfully, Iran went along with it. It's like I hoped. I talked about it in the video I made on this a couple days ago. I wouldn't say it was a prediction, but I said, the way that this could stop, the only real hope of this stopping is if Iran will stop shooting, even if they're still being attacked. And essentially that's what happened when the possibility was raised that there could be a ceasefire if they stopped shooting, they went along with that, and they continue to take strikes from Israel. Very sad what's happened in Iran. So many people have been killed. I read a UN report just about the psychological damage done to the country. A lot of people living in fear. There's been runs on stores, and people fleeing, people afraid to go back home. It was very destabilizing last couple of weeks for Iran, but hopefully they have time now to recover. Hopefully this tactic of using Iran's nuclear program as a means to destabilize them and even attack them, as we've seen, hopefully that's now been played out and can't be repeated for at least a few years. But I think the Iranians know that they aren't safe. What do they do now? Well, it seems they have to really continue to strengthen their ties with their neighbors, strengthen their ties with strengthen their integration with China, with Pakistan, with Africa, make themselves an indispensable part of this new multipolar economic system that is arising. And in order to do that, it was important that they showed themselves to be rational, showed themselves to play by the rules, showed themselves to stay calm and rational, even in the face of a terrible, illegal, aggressive attack on them, unprovoked. Where does Israel go from here? That's a lot of that's going to depend on their internal politics. Hopefully, we're seeing signs of war weariness, where they may start to reject this path of just endless belligerence from the Netanyahu government. They've got a lot of mending to do if they want to be a respectable country again. They've got a long ways to go, and they've got a lot to prove, and they can't just prove it to the U.S. The U.S. isn't the only game in town anymore. There are other economic systems that are overtaking the United States, and it's certainly overtaking the United States' influence in Central Asia, West Asia, in North Africa, the countries that surround Israel. The world is moving on from this unipolar system where Israel only needs the United States. The world is changing, and Israel's going to have to change quickly if they're going to be a respectable and successful part of it. And I hope they can make those changes and repair their image, repair their economy, and have standing in the world. But it's going to take a change in some of those fundamental parts of their strategy, being how they treat their Palestinian neighbors. And I don't know how that's going to look. That looks like quite a conundrum, quite a terrible situation that is ongoing. Thankfully, there's been a pause in the hostilities with Iran, but the people of Gaza continue to suffer horrifically, and there's no end in sight, at least as far as people like myself and the general public can see. Where does the United States go from here? Well, like I touched on, they've done things that they won't be able to do again. They've used pressure points that they had, things that they could exploit in their quest for geopolitical dominance. They've done things now, and I think they've gone too far. They've done things that now they won't be able to use again. They've played cards that can't be played again. Hopefully they have run out of some of these options. That's something we can hope for, and hopefully as time goes on, and hawks want to stir up hostilities again, hopefully those options will not be available. United States debt continues to grow and grow and grow, and the use of the dollar continues to diminish, the United States debt becomes more expensive as the world economic system becomes less interested in propping it up. It's not going to disappear. It's not going to go anywhere in a hurry, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it'll look even much more precarious than it is now. You go back 20 years, go back to the Bush administration, the previous Republican administration, which did very extremist things at home and abroad, as this administration is doing. People talked about the United States collapsing because of their poor standing in the world and their reliance on debt to finance their aggression. They certainly haven't collapsed, and I'm glad for that. You know, I don't want to see a collapse in one of the largest countries in the world where so many people need to have their daily needs met, and so much good comes out of the United States in terms of medical research, all kinds of sciences, and just a lot of good people. But hopefully the United States' ability to wage wars of aggression and their ability to make people across the world suffer, hopefully that will be diminished, and hopefully that is something that will be repeated less and less, or perhaps not at all. Well, please let me know what you think. How hopeful are you for this ceasefire to continue? Are we seeing a turnaround perhaps? And if you could say, kind of the way I see it, that the world's been going into a nosedive over the last few years with wars flaring up and just things happening that it looked like we would be able to avoid. You know, things seemed to be getting better as far as world peace was going, but things have taken quite a dive in the last few years. Are we pulling out of that nosedive? Please let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you again later. Bye for now.